Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the Raising Our Children's Kids virtual mini-series. Today we're talking about maintaining physical wellness. So just like the other series so far, we'll start with a brief introduction to getting to know each other, and then we'll go ahead and continue through our presentation. So as we talk about physical wellness, there's a couple different dimensions that I really want to highlight, and the biggest piece is that physical activity provides us with so many great benefits. So I'm going to start by talking about the benefits of physical activity with our children. The biggest one that I think is most important to me, at least, is thinking about how physical activity can result in fewer behavioral and disciplinary problems in school. Children tend to do better in school academically and have longer attention spans in class. So that physical activity is really good for our brains and helping us stay focused and things like that. It also helps us build our confidence. It helps decrease stress and depression. And then, of course, some of the more common things, developing and maintaining those strong bones, helping us have good sleep habits, building strength and endurance and things like that. It also improves our social skills. So if we're concerned about how our children are doing in social settings, having more physical activity could be an option to improve some of those social skills. Now, physical activity, of course, is great for children, but it's also great for us as adults, no matter what our age. It has a lot of really good health benefits, including lowering risks of a lot of common heart disease, mortality, different health conditions as well. And including in that is improving our cognition, having a reduced risk of dementia. So I know as we get older, that's something that's more and more in our minds. So that's really something that having that physical activity can help with, as well as improving physical function in general and reducing the risk of having falls or fall-related injuries. So there are some guidelines for what we think is the most effective amount of exercise or physical activity that people should get. And this is different based on your different age groups. So when you're looking at preschool age children, people who are 3 to 5, it's really important to get physical activity every day throughout the day. That includes running around, playing games, and different activities that preschool age children would most likely interact with. When you get a little bit older and you become a child or an adolescent, ages 6 to 17, there's a little more defined definition of those physical activity recommendations. So anyone 6 to 17 years old should be getting at least 1 hour or more of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity every day. And that can include a lot of different things. I'm going to show you in a couple slides some ideas for what those different terms mean. But on at least 3 days a week, we should be doing some things that are providing strengthening exercise. So things that strengthen our muscles, strengthen bones, and having vigorous activity. As we get a little bit older, you know, that 18 to 64-year-old range, we should be getting 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity. So that could be brisk walking, that could be working in the yard, that could be shoveling snow, lots of different things. And we should also be getting at least 2 days a week of having some strengthening exercise as well. The only thing that changes once you turn 65 is that it's also recommended to do some balance activities, standing on one foot, other things to help prevent some of those falls. So I just kind of gave you all that information of the different recommendations, but we all really need a mix of physical activity to stay healthy. So it's definitely having some of that aerobic activity, something that gets your heart beating faster, at least 150 minutes a week. There's some different pictures here: golfing, swimming, raking, playing basketball, working in the yard, lots of different things. And then at least those 2 days a week of muscle strengthening activity, which will help us manage conditions and prevent diabetes, arthritis, and heart disease. So really great things to think about for our own personal health, because our kids are going to see what we're doing and want to engage in some of that physical activity as well. I do want to say that you should never start a physical activity regimen without consulting a doctor, making sure that you are in a place in your physical wellness to be doing these things, and we should never ever do things that hurt. If a physical activity is hurting, don't do it. If it is something you do routinely, that would be a time when you might want to consult a healthcare provider on that as well. So I said that our youth, our kids, need some aerobic and some strengthening exercises each throughout their physical activity routines. So we really want those aerobic exercises every day. So on this chart, it kind of breaks down the top two bars here are the aerobic exercise, and the bottom two are the strengthening. So these are some different kind of ideas that we can encourage our kids to do. Anything that's going to get our heart pumping. These are just some ideas. Of course, there's lots of different ones out there. And then the bottom two, like I said, demonstrate those strengthening exercises. So there's muscle strengthening and bone strengthening, which are two different things. Different kinds of exercises are needed to do that. So those are kind of some of the breakdowns as well. And you'll notice that there's a difference between moderate and vigorous intensity. And the way to measure that is the talk test. If you can talk, carry on a sentence, not run out of breath while you're talking, it's moderate. If it's a little bit harder, you're kind of like huffing and puffing while you're doing it, that may be, fall under vigorous activity. So what are some of the barriers that your family experiences regarding physical activity? So some of the ways that we can increase our physical activity with ourselves and also with our children are some different things that I've highlighted here. So the first one is to be a role model. Like I just said earlier, if the kids see you engaging in physical activity and enjoying yourself, and it's not a chore that you have to do, they're going to want to participate too, because it's going to be time that they can spend with you. They're going to see that it's helpful, it makes you feel good, and they will want that too. The next tip is to really keep it fun. So like I said, if it's a chore and they know that it's a chore, they're not going to really want to do it. And if it's used as a punishment, so like, oh, I don't know, for example, there's a consequence of if you don't do this, you're going to have to go rake the leaves, or you're going to have to take a walk around the block. When we use physical activity as a punishment, we take away that feeling of, oh, this feels good, I'm getting healthy from this, I'm getting strong from this, and instead we're making it, oh, I have to do this because I got in trouble. And that can have lifelong impacts as well. Another tip is to reduce or limit screen time. I know that's especially difficult in the current age that we're in. I mean, we're on a screen right now as I'm presenting this, but kind of reducing it and limiting it. Having some kind of schedule or some kind of routine where at 8 o'clock the TV goes off, or at no iPads after dinner, whatever that looks like for your household, trying to find some ways that you can reduce the amount of screen time and encouraging them to be up and around rather than sitting down and being sedentary. Another one is to enjoy some community activities. So perhaps you have some spatial constraints and there's not a lot of things you can do in your home or around your home. If you can go to different community activities. So in Huntington, I know over the summer there were yoga in the park, we have different community gardens, we have different things at the parks, different activities, all sorts of things in Huntington that we're able to participate in. Could be another opportunity for some of that physical activity. That doesn't sound like exercise. Walking to go play at the park doesn't sound like it's going to be exercise or physical activity, but it's going to get you moving a little bit more. And on that same note is if you can walk or bike to a location instead of driving, of course that depends on where you live and what your life looks like, but that's going to get you a little bit more physical activity in your day as well. And lastly, something that's so important is to praise, reward, and encourage. Offering all of that positive reinforcement, helping them see that, yes, this is making me strong, this is making me healthy, and encouraging them to participate in it is going to be a really good way to get them involved as well. Now, I do also want to add that if your child is very inactive now, is not getting 60 minutes a day, maybe isn't even getting 60 minutes a week, really very inactive, you want to kind of take it slow, do it gradually, in the amount and the intensity. It's not recommended to go from 0 minutes a day to 100 minutes a day. They will resent you, they will not enjoy it, and it will just kind of turn this problem into something that's more long-lasting than it currently is. So there's a lot of different physical activity things that we can do. So a lot of times we think about, oh, I need to go for a run, or I need to do jumping jacks, or I need to do this. But any type of physical activity where you're up and moving and your heart rate is up, it's going to count as physical activity. So these are just some fun things that I found. Sometimes, space is limiting, but if you can do some of these things, especially during the winter, it's going to allow you some different opportunities and different options. Probably my favorite one was the cleanup race, because kids are inherently messy, and so if you say you've got 60 seconds to clean up all your toys, they're going to do it really fast because it's going to be fun and exciting, and then your living room is going to be cleaned up afterward as well. So a good way to get dual benefit out of that. Some of the other ones on here that I just want to kind of explain a little bit. So the animal races are like hop like a frog, waddle like a duck. You could even do slither like a snake. So that would be some more physical motions and different muscle groups working together. Follow the leader. It's just kind of like Simon Says. You do different exercise activities. And then I also thought the popcorn push-ups were kind of fun, where you have a bowl of popcorn on the floor and you do a push-up and you lick one up with your tongue when you're down and you push yourself back up. They would need their own bowls, of course, but that would be something fun. They get a little snack out of it as well. And it might be a little bit messy, so then maybe a cleanup race afterwards as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So part of the way I gave you some tips on how to increase physical activity. What happens typically is we increase our physical activity, we do it for a little while, and then we kind of slack off again. So if you can make a plan and really stick to it, 90 days is typically how long it takes to make a habit and to continue that habit. So this is a really cool website that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services provides, where you can go and plan your activity. You can say, this is my goal. You can pick different activities. You can pick different exercise routines and just plan it out in your day, and it gives you a calendar at the end of it. So at the end of my PowerPoint slide, I have the link to this, and it's free. It's available for anyone. But this is just another way to kind of plan and keep your routine going. Anything written down tends to be have a little bit more accountability than just saying, I'm going to go do this physical activity in the morning. Having it written down can give you a little more structure. So part of physical wellness is physical activity and exercise, but also it's nutrition and eating, which we kind of talked about on Monday. And it also includes sleep. So the first question I have is, are you getting enough sleep? Because the answer is probably no. We have a tendency here in the United States to not get enough sleep. So this is a really great chart that tells you what the recommended hours of sleep per day are. So if you have school-age children 6 to 12, they should be getting 9 to 12 hours of sleep a night, which is kind of hard. I think it's a little less hard in the winter when it's dark early, but for the most part, it's kind of a hard thing to accomplish. In your adults categories, your minimum should be 7 hours of sleep, which again can be pretty hard when we have life going on, different things going on in our life, but we should really try to be getting this much sleep. Now, someone once asked me, do they really need that much sleep? 12 hours of sleep, that's a half a day. Yes, they absolutely do need that much sleep. And that is because adolescents who do not get enough sleep are more likely to experience all of these things. They're more likely to be overweight. They're more likely to not engage in physical activity. They're more likely to have symptoms of depression, more likely to engage in unhealthy risk behaviors, drinking, smoking, using drugs. And then, of course, we know if we're tired, we're probably not going to perform as well in school also. And that's just some of the risk factors. We also know that sleep can help us prevent things, type 2 diabetes, obesity, having poor mental health, even injuries. When we're tired, we're clumsy. We tend to run into the wall or fall down the stairs. Lots of different small injuries that we could completely avoid. And as well as having the ability to prevent some of those attention and behavior problems. So yes, when we say they need 12 hours of sleep, they really need 12 hours of sleep. Now, that's not easy to do. Like I mean, we already discussed some of the different life factors that kind of keep us from getting those 12 hours of sleep. But there are things you can do to encourage having good sleep. So going to bed and getting up at the same time each day, including the weekends. I know when I was a kid, I loved to sleep till like noon on the weekends, but I would get up at 6 or 7 on the weekdays. And so then my whole routine would be all messed up during the weekends. So having the same bedtime, the same wake up time is really important. You want to also try to keep the bedroom quiet and dark and a comfortable temperature. So typically people like their nighttime, bedtime sleeping areas to be colder than they would during the day, and that will help with some good sleep as well. Removing electronic devices from the room. I know some people use cell phones as alarm clocks. That's fine, but they should be put up where you're not looking at them when you're trying to wind down for bed, and keeping them away, not playing on them instead of sleeping. So kind of keeping that in check as well. We should also really, really try to avoid large, heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol before bedtime. That's why the general recommendation is to not eat anything after 8 p.m. Of course, that's different depending on sleep routines and things like that, but general guidance is after 8 p.m. don't eat any food, because our digestive system is going to keep us awake. And lastly, if you have more physical activity during the day, you're more likely able to fall asleep easier at night and stay asleep. If you're not getting any exercise or not burning any calories, you're going to kind of lie in bed awake wondering why I can't fall asleep. Even just the recommended amount of exercise, 60 minutes a day for kids, is going to be enough to help you kind of fall asleep better and have more healthy, good sleep. So like I mentioned, there's a couple resources. The Move Your Way Activity Planner is available. And then I've also just included the link to the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. This tells us all of the things I mentioned today come from this very large document. So that's a really good resource to check out if you want more information. The next steps I have 3 for you today. The first one is I hope you'll get up and move, especially after watching this. You kind of get up and walk around a little bit, get you away from the screen. Try to make a SMART goal. So these are goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, related to maintaining or improving your children's physical wellness. An example of this could be, my daughter is going to get 60 minutes of exercise every day, starting like in 1 week, or working up to it within 1 week, she's going to get up to 60 minutes a day. Some example of that. And then the last one is just try a new way to get moving this week. So if you're in Indiana, it's gotten pretty cold. It's kind of snowy and rainy lately. So maybe outside activities aren't the best option. So maybe try one of those ways from earlier in the slide, or try some new activity that you've been really wanting to try and just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. So those are kind of my things that I'm encouraging you to do throughout the rest of the week. Again, if this is the only session you're attending, please complete the survey with the link. And that is all I have for you. I hope to see you tomorrow for Emotions and Explosions.